Hi, I'm following along with Paul McCorders Raspberry Pi Pico W lessons, and he's on lesson 111, and he's learning the essentials of the Pi QT uh, graphical user interface. And before I get into the lesson and everything, a lot of you know that I champion another Python graphical user interface called FreeSimpleGUI, and I've been bummed for over a year. The first thing happened is that they put most of the uh, library module behind a paywall, and you could get it as a hobbyist, but it was a lot of trouble to use it and everything, and just recently, I heard that it was going to disappear altogether, that they were shutting down the whole program. But just yesterday, I found out that it has actually been taken over by a open source community, and it rebranding the exact same library module as Free Simple GUI, and they promised that it will always be free. So. Um, I was very happy about that, and I actually made a short video yesterday discussing the details of that. And um, after watching Paul's video on lesson 111, I'm even more glad that Simple GUI is around to stay, or not Free Simple GUI. I'll have trouble remembering to change to Free Simple GUI, but yes, it is. Uh, to me, much more uh, in my brain, it works so much better. Plus, you guys probably know that I like to do things in a shortcut, shorter way, and this allows you to, just get Pi QT calls them widgets, but Free Simple GUI calls them elements, and to define each element on the thing is a one line of just a one liner, and it just you don't have to have 4 or 5 lines to do everything. As I was watching Paul yesterday, he got to about this point and he was up to like 68 lines of code on there, and I was like, ugh. And it was actually after watching the video that I went out and found out that they had resurrected Free Simple GUI, and I was dancing. So anyhow, let's get to the homework. Let's see. Paul's homework was that we were supposed to recreate his GUI here, and that was what he showed us how to do. And then the easy next step was to combine that with our uh, client that we had for our client to server on the Pico to change LED colors and everything. So first things first, let's go to the code. This is the very first one. And this was Paul's 68 lines of code that he showed us. And this is the equivalent of the code on Simple GUI. And it's just creating 4 buttons, different color buttons. And then he wanted to have a slider. And this is all the code you really need to do. And then instead of having all those functions to interact with each one, you just have what they call this event loop here that runs all the time. And um, basically, that's all you need to run that. So I can show it running. I could have made this box any size I wanted, but I did by just not this. This is where you set your window. You could have added a size to it, and made it whatever size you wanted to. So actually, let me close this and I'll do that. I think it's just SIZE, and then you give it a tuple, and it would maybe 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. 500. by 300. Let's see how that works. Uh, Coding on the fly. Let's see if it works. There you go. So yeah, this would be more like what Paul was doing. You know, you're getting this and um, we're setting the size of our buttons up there and everything, setting the color of them. And then Paul had the trouble where he couldn't do uh, had to be integers on his slider, but FreeSimpleGUI lets you choose what resolution you want. So I put 0.1 resolution on that, so I won't have to do math afterwards. I did forget, I just realized I didn't put the frequency in hertz here, but that's like 1 or 2 lines of code more, so that wouldn't be too bad. But anyhow, so that's that, and that's like I said, he was having 68 lines of code to do this exact same thing, and with PySimpleGUI you do it in um, 16 lines. Like I say, each button just takes up that much room, and well, I guess actually size too. We wanted the size, so SG button. There you go up to the, and then like I said, the yellow button Paul was talking about that you had to have the background color and the foreground color. This just means black print on yellow background. And then when we did the black button, it's white print on black background. I think I probably could have left the white off because white is usually the default color on most of your buttons. But I just put it in there just to show that you could do it. And like I say, this button here defines our slider and at horizontal orientation, the size of it, the resolution, and the min and max is all it was. And like I said, back down here, instead of each one of these can create events, and the events are every time you get an event, then you get the key of the event, and the key on a button is the title of the button. So it's blue, yellow, black, and that made it really nice for my next program where we expanded it. And I guess I didn't show that it was printing out down the bottom here. You can see blue button pressed, yellow button pressed, red button pressed. Anyhow, uh, we got that working. So anyhow, so then the homework was to combine that with our client to do that. So our client code before was really simple, and so I just had to import the socket and create the socket and make sure you have the uh, port and everything for the address and port um, uh, for the Pico that we wanted to contact, and then all we have to do is come down here, and then this event loop, it waits for a button press or anything else. So um, and I don't know how the PyQt handles it also, but I know that this event loop is like a blocking thing. You can make it non-blocking by doing different things in Python or FreeSimpleGUI, but most of the time when you got a GUI up there, you don't want to do things. All you're doing is waiting for the thing to happen, and you act on that. But like you know, you might want to be doing something else instead of. But anytime you're doing anything besides waiting for your for a button press, then your buttons become unresponsive if you're out doing, you know, file searching and stuff like that. So you have to be careful of that. But anyhow, this is so all we did is we're getting, and if we close the window, then we want to break out of our loop. So that's what we're doing with this. And but otherwise, anytime we get an event, we're going to get the uh, blue, yellow, red, or off is an event. So all I'm doing is encoding the event and sending it off to the Pico, and then we're getting the data back from the Pico that we would normally that we got in the past. I didn't change anything on the Pico side and everything. So I got the Pico. It's running on battery. Paul commented about the power bank. Like I say, this is a probably a 10-year-old power bank that I have that doesn't have the low current shut off on it, and uh, I I treasure these things. I'm gonna hold on to them. I think I've tried to replace batteries in a couple of them, and it works out okay by just replacing the battery in them, and they go again. But the circuitry, I tried buying the same one. It looks the same, but the new circuitry has got the power shut off in them, and low power shut off, and they just shut off after 20 seconds. But anyhow, so let's get to the code and get this running. You can probably see the LEDs there, but I'm gonna hit the blue. The blue one comes on, yellow comes on, red comes on. The It looks like the other one might be on, but it's off. It's just the glow from it. And then we can turn them all off. Red, yellow, blue. And off. And if you see, I've also added a send to off. I just wanted that when we break out of our event loop here to clip before we close the window, I do send that off to the thing so that it shuts off. So, and I also added this exit here. This is the exit button. Instead of having to go up here, you can do this. It's always good to have uh, way exit button, I think, on our GUIs. So I got the red one on. I'm going to exit, and you can see the red went off, and so it sent the off there to do that. And you can see down here that as I was pushing the buttons that we received data back from the Pico that, yeah, the off was set, the red was set, yellow was set, and all that. So we were getting that data back from the other ones too. And if you see, our total code is 26 lines with, and I didn't cram anything up. I got spaces in between stuff and everything. And it's uh, 26 lines of code. Anyhow, that's my homework. But I've thought about it and I said, well, maybe I'll try to explain. Paul was explaining the PyQt, so maybe I'll try to explain how I go about um, putting together the PySimple GUI. So if you're interested in that, keep on listening. Otherwise, thanks for watching so far, and uh, hope hope to see what Paul does next time. So anyhow, let's go back to the little simpler one here. So our layout here is the way they do the layout is they have a list of lists. So the outside lists, so we call it layout, and our outside lists are these orange brackets here. And that's the whole screen or your whole window that you're going to create. And then inside you're going to have a you know, several lists or how many ever lists you need, and you're going to uh, you know, each one of those lists can have several items in them. So each inside list equates to a line of code. So let's run this, and I'll move it out of the way so we can see what's going on. So up here, now you can see here's the opening of the first list, and the closing of it is all the way down here. This is one big list that we have, and I just split it and bring it in down here so it doesn't scroll off the screen too bad. But anyhow, so each element, we're calling them elements, not widgets, each element on the list has a list item. So each list item ends with a comma. So, so you could call this, and like I say, shortcuts are a big thing with FreeSimpleGUI. So you could call this SG button. First of all, we rename our library SG because who wants to write out FreeSimpleGUI all the time? And so it's SG. So SG dot, and then it could, and button is the command to get that element. But it has an alias of a capital B, so you can just use SGB. And then the first thing you put on there is the text that's on the button. So if you have a button, you got to have text on it, or you could have an image or an image with text. But even if you didn't need any uh, text on there, you would just put an open and close quote there. And then that could be the end of it. And then, but if you want to change the color, all your colors are in these string formats. So you got, the string, you got, yellow, red, black, white, whatever. There's other colors, and you can find a list of colors that you need that you can use on their in their documentation. And then when you got the size, so the size of it is how wide it is. S can either be a single number or it can be a tuple. So if it's a single number, that's how many characters wide your button is. So uh, yellow was my largest, I think, word, and it's only 6 characters. So I said, oh, 10 characters will be enough. And you don't want them all. If you didn't put the size on it, it would just take up just whatever it needed for the word and a little bit on the a little bit of padding on the side. But like I said, you got, you can put how many characters. And if you made a tuple, if you want to make it, it would be how many lines it would be. So, if you wanted a wide button, you could put, 10 tuple of 10 comma 2, and it would be 2 lines, tall. The button, if you need a big old fat button or something. But then, like I said, each one of these, so I had 4 buttons. There's 1, 2, and then on the second line, you got 3, 4. And like I say, all that is part of one list. So that's all going to show up on one line across your thing. And then your slider, we're creating this slider up here. And like I said, the slider is in its own list. So it's going to be on one line down. And I don't know whether Paul on PyQt, Paul didn't have the numbers weren't showing, or maybe, I don't know, maybe he put the numbers in a different spot. But you could do a lot of different things. So that's another thing is that I went to look for the documentation on PyQt, and it wasn't very easy to find. It was really hard to find. And especially when you wanted to see what attributes you could give each of your widgets or each of your elements. That's the thing about the FreeSimpleGUI is they have what they call this call reference, and you got all the elements over here, and then you can look them up, and this tells you all the elements or all the attributes that you can give that. So like I say, button text, it's going to give you, and this is all the defaults that it's going to give you. Because if you don't put anything, it's going to it's still going to put a button up there if you don't put anything. But it's going to be a blank button with no text on it and everything. But you can, all these other things you can put on it, um, whether it, what color it is, and uh, a lot of other stuff on it. And this is, like I said, this is all the attributes just listed. And then down here, it tells you a little bit of information on each one of them. And for every element, you have that. So let's go down to the slider. And we got the slider element. So, like I said, it's you're going to give it the range, and it's, whatever the range is. And Uh, you give it a tuple for the range. Default value. I don't know whether I put a default value. I might have. And then the resolution is where you could put that 0.1. And it tells you down here where you got the min and max range. And it says it can be either int or a float. So you can do both. do either one that you wanted to. And you can get the border width and all the color and everything down there. And define how wide it's going to be. And the size, again, you can either have size or you can put an S as a shortcut. So they're big on shortcuts. But the size is the length and the width in pixels. Sometimes you're in characters. Oh, it's the length in characters, and then the width is in pixels. So yeah, not sure what that's supposed to mean, but yeah. Anyhow, they're ints that you use. So sometimes you might think you're getting characters and you're getting pixels. So you have to check that out. I probably didn't read that well enough to understand what I was saying back there. Anyhow, like I said, you got the padding, you got a lot of other things that you can. And for each one of the elements that you can, a combo box or a list box or a menu item or whatever, you have all these attributes that you can do it. And it's just you define the element and you add the attributes that you want to change on it. Like I say, it's going to have its default look to it, but you can do whatever you want with it. So that's how you create your GUI. But let's get back to just that's creating your layout for your GUI. And then your window, you define your window, and then you're saying that I want the layout list of elements in my layout. And like I say, we added the size at the end there. And then, like I said, each one of a button, every time it's clicked, it's going to create an event. The slider, even though I didn't take advantage of it, the slider, anytime the position changes on it, that can create an event. And then it creates the slider event, and then the value is added to that. Like the buttons, they don't really have a value. They might have a value, but it'd be just 1 or 0 probably is what the values are. But if you're only getting the event if it's been pressed, so that's what you would need on that. And anyhow, that seems a whole lot more um, just makes a whole lot more sense. And I like the fact that 16 lines of code to do what Paul did in 68. So I'm going to continue to follow along with his lessons because it's always good to know what else is out there. And I'll be watching the PyQt code that Paul does, but I'll probably be redoing it in FreeSimpleGUI. So anyhow, that's my video for today. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, everybody.